They tell me you're a man with true grit.
What do you want, girl? Speak up at supper time.
Great people on the show, and you are listening to the best dirt track podcast on the planet. And so we're going to introduce a couple of people. First, my sidekick and good friend, Pat Moore.
Thank you, Shane. I'm glad to be here. On the maiden voyage, I'm looking forward to doing this.
All right, and I got the Red Rocket all the way from McCausland, Iowa, Jeff Morris.
Thanks, Shane. I'm glad to be here also.
All right, and then we have Just Kelly.
Just Kelly.
Kelly, yeah. So, hey, you tuned in tonight. We're happy to have you listening to us, and we're going to cover a lot of different stuff in this show over the period of the next racing season, our current 2021 season. We will give results, not only from Davenport Speedway, but Maquoketa Speedway. Also, up at the Rock Island County Fairgrounds, East Moline Speedway, and we'll speckle a lot of different tracks in with that. We're just like a bunch of guys sitting around the race shop. We just got done working on the car. We laid down the hammers and tools, and we're going to talk racing. So we're going to kick this thing off. We're going to talk about some of the specials coming up at Davenport Speedway this year, and I'm pretty excited. Now, April 23rd kicks off the weekly race season. That's coming up in 2 weeks. We'll follow that up with weekly shows April 30th, May 7th. But coming up on May 21st, Pat Moore, you're a sprint car midget guy, and April 21st, we're going to have the Badger Midgets over at Davenport Speedway. Where are they from? What are they about? What's a midget? And what can the fans expect?
I tell you what, midget racing has been huge in the Quad Cities, and I'm really excited about having the Badger Midgets back on a Friday night program. They should put on a great show. Badger's based out of the Madison, Milwaukee area. They dwindled down in numbers through the years, but they've really come on strong. Their home track has always been Angel Park Speedway in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin, which is just outside of Madison. That was kind of their bread and butter. They travel a little bit, and it looks like this year they're going to have a little bit more extensive schedule. I think they're running at Dubuque maybe the week before that or 2 weeks before that, and I can't wait to have them here at Davenport as well.
All right. And then coming up on June 11th, June 18th, we're going to have the SLMR late models on June 18th. Then June 25th, it's my birthday. If you want to send gifts, I'll give you my home address later on in the show. We're going to have the Sprint Invaders in town. Now, Pat, what are they going to be running? 305s, 350s, or what are they running, those Sprint Invaders?
Sprint Invaders are ASCS rules, and so they're a 12 head, which is a specific style of head. It's a little bit antiquated now by the new current Chevy standards, but it's a 360 cubic inch steel block 360. Very high performance racing, winged 360 racing. They run at Knoxville every Saturday night. This group is based out of the Burlington, Iowa and Knoxville, Iowa area, and they put on a whale of a show. Hopefully I'll have my car together. If not, then maybe I'll be up helping you in the booth.
Hey, that'll be a good time. Coming up July 1st, we're going to have a first-time event. We're going to have the UMP Summer Nationals Hell Tour, and that's going to be dirt super late models. That's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to take back the Mars Racing Series again this year, coming up on July 27th. We had them last year. That's dirt super late models running with that Mars Series. And then when I look at beyond all the weekly shows, coming up, 3-day special World of Outlaw late models. That's going to be August 26th, 27th, 28th. Man, if you haven't got your reservation for your camper, get it now, because I'm going to tell you they're going to fill them up. It was our best crowd of the season last year. Great show. I mean, you're talking about, who are we going to have there, Morris?
I don't really know who runs that series. I'm more the modified kind of guy.
Well, we'll get the mods in here in a minute. Jimmy Owens, he's going to be there. The last show we had, World Outlaws last season. Who'd we have? We had Cade Dillard third, Jimmy Owens second, and, of course, Bishop picked off the win in that last show we had. But before that, earlier in the season, we opened up the season last year. We had COVID, and it was crazy times. We couldn't have anybody in the stands. It was one of the best shows I'd seen on that quarter mile. And Brandon Shepard beat It was
Dillard, I think, wasn't it?
no, that one was Ricky Thornton Jr.
Ricky Thornton Jr. That's
by
right.
1/1000th of a second. And I'm sitting there, with Rick Eshelman from World Outlaws, and he called Ricky Thornton Jr. the winner. And I tapped him on the shoulder, and I pointed at the screen. Of course, the computer said, hey, B-Shep won. So Shepard brought home the bacon that day. But those guys, and I'm going to tell you, when the race was over, they come over, and I was out on the Speedway, and Jimmy Owens said, I would race this track or a track like this every week if I could. And Ricky Kai, he and his wife promote Davenport Speedway. He was walking out on the racetrack, and I said, well, that's the guy you want to talk to. And he walked over and spent some time with Jimmy Owens and also with Kate Dillard, and they both shared the same sentiment. They said, man, this track's great. Ricky Kai's a farmer. He's been in there. This is his second full season. Hey, the guy knows dirt, and Dr. Andaloy also helps with that track prep. So, we're looking forward to that. Now, coming up this Thursday, we want to let you know, Dirt Track Promotions, that's going to be Bob Wagner. He will be promoting that event we're going to have, and we're going to have the Lucas Oil late models rolling into town. So, great show coming up Thursday, dress warm, going to be a little chilly. And, Pat, we got something going on Friday night, but it's going to be up at Farley Speedway, and we're going to have
the National Touring ASCS Series.
There you go.
Up at Farley.
Okay.
Yeah, the big guys, and one of the nice things about sprint cars is that you'll probably see some of the Knoxville 360s that run up there as well. So you'll see top level talent. They run there on Friday night, and then the sprint cars open their season at Knoxville on Saturday night.
Good. By the way, I did get both of my COVID shots, so I'm in good shape. My wife she got her 2 shots.
I got both of mine.
Yeah, Pat too. She got the Moderna, and I got the Pfizer.
I got the Pfizer as well.
Okay, well, hey, great minds think alike.
That's
Pat.
right.
So we're in good shape. That's why I'm sitting next to Pat, because he's got both of his shots, so I feel safe over here. Anyway, coming up shortly here next week, we're going to have the regular season opening up at Davenport Speedway. Jeff, I wanted to talk to you about that. Your son Mitchell in a brand new Harris car looked awesome out there on practice day. Then last Saturday night when we raced over there, looked good in the heat, but you said he had a little brake trouble.
Yeah, in the heat races, the first time we had a car on a track that was tacky, and it wasn't really turning very well, but, he got qualified and drew 12. The track slicked up for the feature, so I thought maybe we would be pretty good, but first lap, first corner, brand new race car broke a heim joint on the 4-length bar, and it just about took the field out with him, but
thank God nobody hit him, huh?
Yeah, pretty lucky, really.
Yeah.
But it's a $9 part. We're ready for the next time.
Oh, man. Boy, you talk about cost oatmeal modified racing. I was kind of laughing. I was digging through my old stuff. When Dee Whedon moved to Florida to live with her son, Rob Connors, she said, hey, I've got some stuff that I've collected over the years of Ronnie's, and Rob's not going to let me bring it down. So I stopped over at Dee's house, went out in the garage, and she had 15-gallon totes. Them babies were stacked floor to ceiling, the length of the whole wall. And I said, now I know why Rob wouldn't let you bring all this stuff. So I took like 5 or 6 of them. But I have had things like that throughout my life that has allowed me to collect a lot of cool stuff. And you guys know I love racing history. So here I grabbed, a Hawkeye Racing News. That used to be the hot newspaper to get back in the day before technology and, streaming podcasts and all this come about. But, we look at this. This is from October 3rd, 1985. It says, Webb tops Burlington Fall Jamboree. We just did a show with Webb a week ago. Yeah. And you know what was amazing, Kelly? Can you believe 11,000 hits in the first 24 hours?
Yeah, that's crazy.
11,000 views.
Yeah.
That is crazy. You talk about Hawkeye Racing News. Everybody that raced in the Midwest, this was a weekly paper in the summer.
Oh, absolutely.
And you raced in the mailbox to see if you made the front or if they even mentioned your name in it. Everybody that raced was like that,
And traveling, we got 2 newspapers. That was one of them. Then we got Speed Sport, and every week, Speed Sport would come on Thursday, and that would come on Wednesday.
Yep.
And yeah, you'd open it up, and that was your news. You had to wait to find out what happened. And they got, if you think about it, they wrote the articles. They got it published and out to you within like 4 days.
Yes.
By today's standards, man, if you don't know what happened tonight, you're behind the times. And then we waited for that news, and man, I remember sitting on tires in the shop on Wednesday and Thursday reading the newspapers to find out what happened last weekend.
Crazy. So, Jeff, you and I had a little talk. I thought about one of the changes that we've seen in the racing world is the cost continues to escalate, and so, for lack of a better term, I'm going to say, how do we dumb down that cost of racing to make it more affordable? Because Jeff, you made a comment to me, and you had said you're sitting in the stands at East Moline Speedway back in the day.
Yeah.
And tell me about that.
Well, I was sitting there 17, 18 years old and thought, that I would like to do this. Back then, I went through that for a couple months thinking I'd want to do it. Then finally I just went and bought a car and I did it because, my first car had $2,500 in it when I was done. Now, I don't think there's a class at our local track. And it's really not anybody's fault. It's not the promoter's fault. They can't pay anymore.
Right.
But that an 18-year-old kid can say that does not come from a racing family, I want to do that. Now in just about every class, if a guy's racing weekly or racing a couple nights a week, he's getting help from his family members or from friends, and they have to kind of pool their money because an average guy that's working paycheck to paycheck, or you can't do what we're doing anymore. I hate to sound like that, like a downer, because I'm all about racing, but at some point they need to, like Shane says, dumb down the weekly racing. I don't know what that answer is, but technology is just, it's crazy right now what everybody's doing. And even myself, we've had a modified at our shop since 1984. Just the different tools in the last 4 or 5 years, the smashers and all the different stuff you have to buy just to keep up and to learn that. A weekly racer shouldn't have to go through all that, in my opinion.
I want to ask you about that, Jeff. Back in the day when I was racing, and you had them, we'd usually go up to your house and get them. We had grain scales, and everybody would scale their car, on an old set of grain scales. But today, scaling is not the way you do it. So, Jeff, explain what's a spring smasher. I know we got 4 springs on all 4 corners of the race cars, but are they checking how the spring rate changes as you compress it?
No, they're checking the load on each wheel. So like on a late model, they can do it on all 4 wheels. So like everybody's buying their chassis now, and they'll give you a height that they want you to check the load at. So and it is actually, it's quicker and easier than the scale deal, but you're buying that technology as you go, So you can take that, your shock and a spring, or coil over together on a late model, stick in that smasher, put it at the number, put it at the length, and then put it at the smash number that they want. And
all right,
it just goes on and on from there, though.
Now I'm gonna laugh.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but with a modified, you got to use a load stick in the front because the coil's separate from the shock.
We got
But
you.
it's basically doing the same thing.
So other than that, Jeff, where do you think the biggest raise in cost, especially in something like a modified, has come from? Because don't you run a crate motor?
Yeah, and I think the crate has helped the IMCA modified type sport, but it's the shock deal and just everything else involved. Right now to buy a bare chassis with decking, it's probably $7,500, and I'm not saying that the chassis builders are getting rich. I'm just everything. Then everything you bolt on it from there, it just escalates so quick.
Just the technology?
Yeah, right now, it's nothing to see a modified roller that they want $35,000 or $40,000 for. That somebody's ran a few nights already.
That's one of the interesting things. Comparing my regional racing that I'm exposed to on a local level, that I get more exposure to through you guys and my local racetrack, which is primarily stock cars, and what I grew up around, sprint car racing, there are differences to it. And that's one of the areas that sprint car racing, midget racing, actually is a lot cheaper, as the cars technically are a lot cheaper than I see that. And I'm like, 30 grand. You could buy 3 sprint cars for that.
Yeah.
You could go to Casey Kane's shop and buy 3 of their top of the line rollers that they ran last year for that, maybe 2, with all of the titanium. So where does all the cost come from? Is it just the chassis itself, or the combination, or the technology, or?
I think it's a combination of, the chassis, then everything you build on it. But now there's just people are buying technology from different teams that have the technology, and then it's nothing for. There's a lot of guys coming from out west right now, so they'll race 3 or 4 nights a week here, then they go home and race all winter. It's hard to keep up with that. And then at the same time, there's a lot of tracks that are renting a track out at nights. So guys will race 3 or 4 nights, then they'll go rent a track out for a night, in practice. And it's for a weekly guy that just wants to race 1 or 2 nights, it's hard to stay competitive with that.
Jeff, I was going through my old Hawkeye Racing news, and I gave you one when you came in the door. What year is that one you've got over there, Jeff?
It was a 1984 Midwest Fab modified.
Yeah, there you go. So, hey, what we're talking about is I opened up this old Hawkeye Race news, and I said, hey, I wonder what the cars were selling for back then. And I go to the classified sections, and who's in there? But Jeff Morris's number 80 for sale. Now, Jeff, was that a roller car at that price?
Yeah, it's for sale in here. It was at Tom Herbert's shop at Quad City Used Car, Race Car and Parts for $2,750, and that was at the end of the 86 season. I bought that car. It was 1 year old at the end of the 84 season from Dan Norton, and Terry Hurst built it. It was a Midwest Fab car.
Sure.
For $800, and it was a roll-on chassis, and we put it together, and I had only had 5 or 6 races under my belt before that. We ended up winning a race with that car, so it's a car that I probably had $3,000 in that car when I was done. Ran it a couple years, and then you can see I was selling it as a roller for $2,750, and I sold it for that. Now I think you'd be a little backwards if you're trying to do that same thing,
Yeah, and we know that, I love racing. We're doing the podcast because we love racing. We're not by any means, I'm pro chassis shops, pro modelates, whatever it may be. So all we're trying to do is just, identify some areas that may, help out, when it comes to the cost of racing. But, the reality is cost has went up with the promoters. I know when I was up at East Moline Speedway, the insurance for one night, $1 million liability for the racetrack, $1 million liability for the dram shop, all that stuff, was $1,000 a night. And that, come right off the top. So all of the costs for a promoter have went up. The cost for the drivers have went up. We've seen all this escalate. So, look at the cost of fuel the last couple of weeks. I mean, back when you and I were racing, Jeff, I think I was buying, avgas before we went to methanol for maybe $1.75 a gallon. Now you're talking what, Jeff? $8.75 a gallon?
I think it's $10 a gallon.
$10 a gallon. My gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Crazy.
I'm talking about the cost, and then people that only go to Davenport think, well, what's he talking about? Every class is full. Well, at Davenport, they're doing a really good job promoting it. The track is really good. People travel to go there. But if you go to a lot of the other racetracks, they're really struggling to get cars. Nobody wants to go watch 5 or 6 cars in a class, and that's happening all over the country. I mean, there are tracks, like Davenport, Marshalltown. I know always gets a lot of cars. Boone gets a lot of cars, but there's other tracks in our area here that are struggling to get cars.
And on the open wheel level, and talking about the Badger Midgets that are coming up on May 21st at Davenport, that's one thing that differentiates Badger from Usac is that, and I think we're on the right path talking about cost, because you have 2 approaches to it. You can either ignore it and pretend like there's not a problem and watch car counts swindle, or you can work to address it. Usac midget racing has gone the first way, and they're kind of just keeping on, and unfortunately, it has become a millionaires club. Really, it's multi-car teams are all that pretty much race USAC midgets now. Badger racing, actually, their car counts dwindled over the last decade or so, and they approached it in a very proactive way, primarily with motor costs, and they actually run 4-cylinder production-based engines, a smaller engine than the open type of motor that they run in USAC, and their car counts are beginning to increase and increase and increase.
Now, hey, we're going to look at Boone Speedway results from last weekend. Hey, we had a lot of rain. I mean, it rained. We rained out our Thursday show the whole weekend. Pretty much a lot of tracks was a wash, but we're going to talk about an interesting thing. You know, when I'm up there announcing, one of the things I say is that, you know, is this heaven racing in Iowa? And you betcha it is. The reason it's heaven is during the peak of racing season, you can literally run 7 days a week and never leave this great state of Iowa. And I know that when I went down to Talladega to announce short track racing, they had a 10,000 win mod show. Kelly Bowen, was that his name? He was in town running that show. He's from California. And I said, my gosh, why would you travel to Talladega, Alabama? And he said, hey, I literally got to drive 2 hours to my closest track. And he said the next closest track is 3 hours away. And so, you know, we talk about, you know, a lot of these guys come to Iowa and they live here during the summer. And when you read down these results, Tim Ward picked off the win up there at Boone Speedway. Season opener, Saturday night, A Modifieds. He's from Chandler, Arizona. And Jeff, he stays here in the summertime.
Yeah, him along with probably 4 or 5 other guys come from out west, race here all summer long, and go home and race as much as they can in the winter.
So you got second place was Nick Roberts. He's from Des Moines, Iowa, the number 23 JR. But third place was Dylan Thornton, and he's from Santa Maria, California. He's another one of those guys that rolls into town.
Yep.
Now, Jeff, if they need a place to stay, your wife Lori will roll out the red carpet.
I don't know about that, but if they're ever in this area and they're you know racing and need some help or need a shop to work in, anybody can come over there and do whatever they want. We'd help anybody out that way.
So we'll roll down through this a little bit. And so fourth place, Jimmy Gustin started on a pole, got the old backup beepers on, shuffled her back to fourth. Marshalltown, Iowa, but the Gustins, those guys fly. Fifth place, we'll roll down the top 10, Jeremy Mills from Clear Lake, Iowa. Sixth place, number 12, Joel Bershore from Boone, Iowa. And then we got Todd Shute. He's won the Super Nationals. Number 5, he is from Norwalk, Iowa. And then eighth place was Andy Tiernan, it looks like. Madrid, Iowa. Ninth place, Derek Stewart, Ainsworth, Iowa. And finally, rounding out the top 10 was Russ Dickerson, and he lives right in Boone's, Iowa. But, even as I roll down some of the other cars in the field, and you talked about those guys rolling in from out of town, we had a Shane DeVolder from Pacifica, California, the number 44S. He ended up finishing 16th. But, these guys, when you looked at, the racing down at Bristol on the dirt, that was red clay. And, man, when you come up here to the Quad Cities or Iowa, you've got black dirt. And I remember running up at Knoxville, Iowa in 1987. And, I know they have a different team prepping the track up there now, but the dirt was black. I reached down, I picked that stuff up, Pat. I stretched it out, and it almost snapped in my hand like a piece of rubber. That stuff was tacky.
River bottom clay.
That's what it is.
Yep, and we take that for granted, honestly. And so that's one of the interesting things about traveling. And I've traveled a lot throughout my career, and you don't realize the differences in the dirt from here to Texas. In Texas, it's a lot more brown, has a lot more sand in it. Down east, it has a lot more iron ore. It's kind of a red, almost like a slippery texture to it. And then you get into the Florida Panhandle area. It tends to be really sandy and a totally different texture to it. And the car setups are different. It's a completely different environment.
All right, Jeff.
You're going down that the feature results from Boone. That Joel Rust, or not Joel Rust, but Joel Bashore. I don't know whether he still does, but last year he was actually had a V6 in that car.
Oh, you're kidding me.
And still run a Power Glide transmission. His dad owns a Bashore
Oh,
transfer
hey,
nice, so
how do you like that?
I
Sure.
I don't know whether he still does or not.
Yeah.
But he had a V6 in there for a while.
Nice.
And you talk about that back in the day, Jeff. You run a power glide.
Oh, for sure.
We run a power glide. They were low cost, but you got the cars hooked up so good today and more horsepower, and yet Bershore still sells power glides.
Yeah.
A lot of the guys still got them in race
Most of
cars.
street stocks, yeah.
Yeah.
Back in the day when Shane and I ran power glides, we'd run them in low gear, so we'd just run off the band. And then, like at East Moline, we'd put a 390 gear in it, or go to Davenport, put a 370 gear in it, and run a low gear all the time. And they lasted then, but
Yeah.
you wouldn't get by with it today.
Yeah, you wouldn't get by with it today, but boy, those were the good old days. And so I'm going to roll through real quickly here. Dirt track racing, they got a show coming up. We talked about that. The Lucas Oil MLRA late models rolling into town the 15th. That's going to be on Thursday night. We're also going to be running mods, sport mods, and the ever popular American Iron Racing Series. And so pits are going to open at 3 p.m., grandstands at 5 p.m., hot laps at 6 p.m. with racing to follow. But that American Iron Racing Series, we haven't talked about them yet. Brian Gotti had an idea. He said, man, we're going to put together some old race cars like they did back in the day. And that has turned out to be a real nice racing series. I mean, they're getting 20 cars a night in that series.
Yeah,
They're fun to watch.
Yeah, they are fun to watch, and everybody seems to be pretty racy. I think at the beginning maybe they didn't want the same winner every week, but I think that's kind of out the window now, and everybody's racing really hard. It's pretty cool to see some old Fords out there, Comets and Fairlanes and Camaros and stuff like we've seen when back in that late '60s and early '70s.
I tell you what, the Camaro that was out there on practice night looked almost too pretty to race. Almost too pretty to race. It was beautiful.
And Ray Gus Jr., here he is. He drove for Kenny Roberts, won 3 IMCA late model championships in a row. I think that was the first time that had been done. But he wanted to retire, and he and I went to high school together. I'll turn 62 in June, and so Ray's got to be at the same age. We graduated in 1977. But he's out there driving for Keith Simmons. It's probably a 75 Nova they're racing. You get that thing on the half mile and that big block hums. And Keith Simmons, tell us a little bit about him, Jeff. He had his success over the years in racing.
Yeah, in the late '70s, Tom Hurst drove for him, and I think that maybe they were the first NASCAR weekly National Series winners. Gosh, those guys, they'd win 35, 40 races every year. I can remember as a kid at Davenport watching them break a motor in the heat race, change motor, and run the feature. I mean, I'm not talking one night. They did that several nights. But then Keith actually went down south and was building motors for Cup cars. And then he did that, I don't know, probably 12, 15 years. Came back to Iowa, and then he was a promoter at West Liberty and Dubuque also.
Yeah.
And then he owned Farley.
And he, what a contribution to racing Keith had made over the years. And, now you see him, it's kind of funny. We're all getting older. And, this guy has, done it all from dirt tracks to the Cup. And he's just out there having a good time with Ray now. And I was real excited. I was announcing up at Liberty last year. And Ray picked off the win. And out of the stands come his mom, Margaret Gus, and his wife, Julie Gus, and the old team that was with Keith Simmons. And it was just like who's who at dirt track racing, seeing all them guys back together. So, hey, we'll get back to this dirt track racing. They got 12 races this year. One of them already rained out, so we've got 11 left to go, which includes Thursday night. But we've got Lucas Oil MLRA coming in not only to Davenport, but to West Liberty, Iowa. We've got the Lucas Oil again at Maquoketa Speedway, which, Kelly, you and I worked that show last year.
Yep.
And I got to say, packed house. The numbers were real good, as far as the show. And we had people from, across America and, around the United States and 3 countries watching that show. So that's a great thing to have happen up there in Maquoketa.
Yeah, Maquoketa is a great track, too. I like Maquoketa. That's where we started. I mean, we started doing Facebook stuff a couple years ago. So, yeah, Maquoketa is a great place.
Wow.
So who are some of the well-known names that you guys expect to see here in town on Thursday night?
Yeah, we're going to see. Now, I'm not guaranteeing this, so don't flat my tires. I'm up there announcing a race, but I expect to see Jimmy Owens there. I expect to see Cade Dillard there. Expect to see Brandon Shepard there. So you've got probably, and of course, who's going to be there, Kelly?
Jeremiah's probably going to be there.
Defending series champion.
And Garrett,
And Garrett Albertson, and those guys will be there with those brand new Black Diamond cars. They struggled a little bit down in Farmer City, didn't make the show, but whenever you got a brand new race car, and it's the first time you've had it on the track, you basically need seat time. You got to get out there and say, hey, everything's different on this car than it was on the car they won the championship with. So you got to figure out how to make that thing go.
Especially at that level.
Especially at that level. I mean, you're not running against, the local guys. You have stepped up to the A game. When you're running against guys like Jimmy Owens and Cade Dillard. Now, last year, Scott Bloomquist ran with that series, but now I've seen him at World Outlaw shows this year, so he kind of does that. He flip-flops. He'll run the World Outlaws one year, and he's looked very good. I mean, he had that hip injury last year. He talked about having very limited feeling in his right leg, and I mean, that's your gas foot. And, we all joke, you say you just lock her to the floor, but you really don't. There are times when you're going through traffic, you're working that throttle, and, I think that he struggled with knowing where he was at with that gas pedal. And, my hat's off to that guy for getting out there and racing, at that level, even when he was still injured. Now, hopefully this year, the way he's looked, he looks healthier. What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, I agree. And plus, I mean, I hate to say this because of our age, but the guy's 58 years old, I think, also,
Right.
And so time's working against him a little bit probably as far as being real competitive every single week. But
I'll tell you, he's
always
come
rooting
out
for him.
strong this year, though.
Yeah, for sure.
Hoker Trucking Super Late Models are going to roll into town. That'll be August 20th. West Liberty Raceway, August 21st. Maquoketa Speedway, we're going to have the Britt Montgomery Memorial, and we're going to have the Hoker Trucking Super Late Models. So God bless Hoker Trucking. They're real good about sponsoring racing, and thank God for Jeff and Penny Hoker. They sponsor a lot of race cars, and not only that, Britt Montgomery was the son of Dean Montgomery. Great late model driver, won a lot of shows. Britt and Bart were the twin boys. Britt worked for dirt track racing, and he had the headset on, and he would talk to the drivers on the restarts. And, the good Lord called him home. He got cancer, and we sure miss him. But what a great thing to do to have that Britt Montgomery memorial. Then wrapping up the season, we'll get back to Britt here. We're going to have the Night of Destruction Trailer Race and Cheaters Night. That's coming up September 11th. So, Jeff, you got something about
I was just
Britt?
going to say, Britt, he raced for a long time. Him and Bart both raced for a long time. And then they were also flagmen for a long time. Both of them were, before they, started just being officials. So
Yeah.
They spent their whole life at the racetrack for sure.
So then we got Hoker Trucking Super Late Models coming to Dubuque, Iowa with dirt track racing. That'll be on September 23rd. September 24th, we're going to have the Hoker Trucking Super Late Models up at West Liberty along with Mods, Sport Mods, and the American Iron Racing Series. And then finally, the Iowa Governor's Cup, Hoker Trucking Super Late Models. That will be September 25th, and that'll be on the Davenport Speedway quarter mile. That'll wrap up the season for Bob Wagner and dirt track racing. So that's just some more cool stuff that's going to happen this year. And I think, the best is yet to come. We had a great season last year, great shows last year, and, I think this year is even going to be better yet.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, it's going to be different, I think, though. Last year it was kind of a panic for everybody, right? And, just to get as many races as you can. And it was, especially for us, because we were going all over the place trying to do as many, pay-per-views as we can. Everybody wanted. And hopefully there's going to bring more people back into the stands here next year.
But I think, Kelly, I know you and I have talked about that. I think last year kind of forced the technology's hand a little bit because it exposed so many more people to racing. And I know myself included. I got to watch, probably 15 races just over the weekend.
Yeah.
Races from Pennsylvania to I watched both midget races. I watched sprint car races from California, all from my living room.
Yeah.
And I'm a racing fan, don't get me wrong, and if it wasn't raining, I would have been at a racetrack, but I can still come home and watch via the internet or via a streaming service. I can catch up on the races that I missed and find out what happened at races in Lincoln Speedway in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and that's, you're right. It kind of did force our hand. We got to do what you got to do, right? We went from Facebook, and then we did the first Fall Bash, that first year. And we didn't know. I didn't know how to do pay-per-view. We didn't know anything about it. I thought we were going to do it on YouTube or something. Wow. And between Kyle and Rob and Rob, or I think it was Kyle, found Chris Grainer from Speed Sport.
Sure.
And he coached us right through it. So, and I've been happy to be with them. It's great to have the backup. That Speed Sport platform that. They've been doing it for a long time, so we kind of get underneath their umbrella. There's a cost involved, but there's a cost in everything. They take care of a lot of that stuff that we don't have to take care of, so lets us focus on the production. And let me tell you, it's kind of like cars, I would imagine, because it's a different setup every day. But man, I honestly had no idea what I was getting into. Going to different tracks and stuff, because everybody's got different audio, everybody's got different setups, everybody's got different. Different announcers, different everything. So it was definitely a challenge trying to figure out. And we did a good job last year. All of us, the whole team did a good job last year. This year is going to be a little bit different. And, I think we're going to have to, this year I want to focus more on growing making the business part of it. And it's always been my goal. I'm not trying to get the $50,000 show. I don't, you know what I mean? I'm not, I'm here for the sport. I've only been involved in this sport. Speaking of my involvement, Keith Bloom's 1-year anniversary was last year of his passing away last year. And he's really the one that kind of got me into it. And then I started running with Kenny and Jeremiah and them guys, And it's, I don't know, man. It's something that it's like it's like a secret that general people don't know about, right? And it's what a great sport, and watching it on TV is great, but being at the track and seeing that and going through the pits and seeing the kids and the moms and the wives and the brothers and everybody kind of helping each other out, and somebody might break something, and you got they're just helping people out, man, and you don't see that in a lot of different sports. We were talking about that earlier, and that's what kind of got me to. I'm trying. I want all these tracks. I want more people in the seats. I want more people on the TV. I'd like to see, and I'm trying to work out so we can put some TVs at the tracks. So while we're doing the live streams, people will be able to go get a beer or go to the bathroom or go get a burger and still be able to watch the stream, be able to watch the instant replays and stuff like that. So
boy, that'd be great.
That's what I'm going to focus on this year is the more the weekly stuff. And then just like I said last year, that I want everybody to win. I'm not trying to, I don't want everybody watching the TV part. I want to bring it up. I want to bring the track up. I want to bring I want to give the fans, the racers, the promoters. I want to kind of bring it all up, because it's just something you're going to have a good time. I don't care who you are. If you go to a Friday night or a Saturday night race, even if you've never been there, you're going to have a good time.
Well, I think kind of marrying those two, we're taking 2020 and we're bringing it into 2021 to where we have people that are coming out of hibernation, if you will, and they're saying, "Hey, listen, it's 2021. We can now get out. Hey, what can we do? It's Friday night. What can we do? Hey, you know what? We saw racing all last winter. Let's go check it out." So, and that's one of the nice things about this, and what you bring to the table with your streaming services, is that how many more people can we reach with this technology? And hopefully, yes, we'll bring more of those people that actually take that opportunity to come out and see the racing in person now that we're coming out of the COVID hibernation.
So Jeff, we talk about it being a family affair. It's you. I remember when your three boys were just, knee-high at Grasshopper. They're there. Your wife's there. When your mom was around, she was at the races every weekend.
we've always done it as a family, and I think that's how a lot of people justify spending all their time racing. You know, I have 3 sons. They're always at the racetrack. My wife's usually at the racetrack unless I do something stupid, then she might not go for a few weeks. But my mom, my stepdad, you know, my in-laws, everybody went. That was just the thing that we did for probably 20 years straight. You know, of course they're all gone now, but and now I have grandkids, and we're going through it again. You know, it's just another generation going. So as long as we can keep that up, I think that's a big plus.
Yeah.
Name another sport. And I remember my dad saying this. So I'm a 3rd generation racer, and my family was the same way. My family was incredibly close because we were together nonstop as we traveled. My entire family was. And name another sport. That's one of the beauties to racing. No matter what you race, no matter if you race a 4-cylinder or a sprint car or a late model, name another sport that the entire family can participate together. Not one participant, not a kid, and everybody else comes and watches, which is fine all into itself. But name another sport where everybody can be an active participant on the team. There isn't.
I don't think so either. And, you know, there's a lot of truth to that because everybody does have their job, whether it's just going to get food to bring to us or you know.
Tear-offs on the helmet.
Exactly. It's a good deal. It's worked out well for my family. I know a lot of families, we have a lot of friends from racing, the Davises, you know, the same way. They've always raced as a family. You know, his sisters and his brother always went together. And there's just, if you look down the line, it's all about family at the racing. The difference is when we were younger, we couldn't have those kids in the pits.
That's right.
When we went there, I think a pit pass might have been $12 30
Sure.
years ago, but it cost you $5 extra if you didn't have white pants on. You
Yeah,
know?
I remember those
so
days.
I remember
things
that.
have changed a little
Yeah.
bit.
So, funny story, if I can, for a
Go
second.
ahead, Pat.
Travels, and our family was very close. My mom was an integral part of our family. The only time that she ever questioned racing, we were in Big H Speedway in Houston, Texas, running a World of Outlaw show. And it was like last weekend. It had rained nonstop. It was standing room only. There were tons and tons of people, so there was no way they were going to cancel the show. It was about 2 a.m. in the morning, okay? And the rain had finally let up, and they gave the call over the PA, driver's meeting, we're going to start hot laps. My mom was exhausted because we had been up all day long, and she's sitting under a blanket in the trailer, and she just says, I remember we came into the trailer and said, Mom, they called us for hot laps. We got to grab the helmet and go. And my mom said, I quit. And that was it. And so we teased her about it the whole rest of her life. God rest her soul.
Oh, man, that's a great story.
But she was involved nonstop. So.
Oh, boy. I remember in our family, my mom, Betty Davis, she wrote for the Hawkeye Racing News, and she was good friends with Charlotte Reinhardt, who was her boss at the Hawkeye Racing News. Charlotte, of course, the head reporter, and she'd hire all the reporters at the racetrack. She'd go down to Daytona Speedway every year. Her son was Gary Reinhardt, who the good Lord called home, a few years back. And 1990, Jeff remembers that night. And, as long as we're talking about that, too, this year we've lost some great racers. I mean, in the last 12 months. And, we're talking about Bobby Tolan, who really brought big-time late model racing to the Quad Cities. And, with his triple 25s, his twin 50s, the Course 100, which originally was Pabst Blue Ribbon 100. And I remember... one year, the Course 100, Bill Elliott was hot back then. He had won the Cup title. The number 9, the Course Melling Thunderbird. They had that car on display up at the Speedway. But just want to give props to Bobby Tolan. He gave me a shot, announcing when my racing career was winding down. And, without him and Joyce Melvin, I wouldn't be here today behind this microphone. We had Bobby Jackson, the whole Jackson family. I used to call Gary Jackson Action Jackson, and he's been gone about 2 months now.
Yeah.
And so there are a lot of these racers. Hey, if we forget one of them, I apologize for that, but we've lost a lot of great racers.
Keith Bloom also.
Keith Bloom, yeah. Steve Duffy, longtime sponsor of Gary Webb, and he lost his life to COVID Donnie Watchell up there at the filling station lost his life, in last year. Big race fan, went to all the races. So
Sponsored a lot of cars.
Sponsored a lot of cars. And so, we really, we're going to miss those people. But we got a lot of youngins coming up, and I got a couple of grandkids too. And, I'm already introducing them to racing at all levels. And, my little granddaughter, she's 5 years old. Isabella, had her out looking at cars and stuff like that. And, I remember I used to go to the store, and when they'd have Hot Wheels on sale, for 75 cents, I'd buy bags of them. And when the neighbor kids would walk down the alley, I'd go out and talk to them about cars and racing, and I'd give them Hot Wheels. And I just wanted them to kind of get introduced in a simple way to cars. And, hopefully someday that would pique their interest and we could move to the next level, which would be dirt track racing. But just wanted to acknowledge all the people that are gone and all the great families that, are part of this sport that we call dirt track racing. Now, listen, I never want to be called speechless, so here's what I'm going to do. Hey, we had Bristol.
Nobody's ever going to call you speechless.
All right, good. Hey, I have a purpose in life. Down at Bristol, hey, they had World Outlaws down there last weekend. They had the Cup cars on there. What are your thoughts about running at Bristol for the Cup guys? What are your thoughts about the late models, the modifieds? I mean, the late models, 130 mile an hour down at the end of the chute.
I think it's awesome. I thought it was really cool to watch the Cup cars on the dirt track. I know some people didn't think it was so neat. I think it's neat that they had the late models and the Hornets, modifieds, everything racing down there, because I think a lot of people see what dirt track racing's about now that have never seen it before or watched it before. And I think the show could have been better as far as there was too many breaks in between, the way they have to stage the cars. There was a lot of downtime on TV. I'm not talking the Cup race. I'm talking about, the late model race. If, they're going to do it again next year, maybe it sounds like. Hopefully they can work out some of those bugs.
Good.
And I tell you what, the World of Outlaw sprint cars are running, not this weekend, but next weekend. This weekend they're down in Texas, Oklahoma and Texas. They're running Lawton, Oklahoma on Friday, and then Devil's Bowl on Saturday. And then next weekend will be a 2-day show on the Big Half Mile. And it's been, 20 years now since the sprint cars have run on Bristol on the dirt? I can't wait to see that show.
That's going to be nuts.
They're going to absolutely fly.
The World of Outlaw late models were just there last night. It was supposed to be Saturday night, but their main feature was last night. And that was a lot better show because they were able to park all the haulers in the infield. And they just had the late models and the modifieds, and it was, that was a good show to watch. But the other deal when they had 6 or 7 classes down there, and they had to bring all the cars into the infield, and then run those cars, and then they all had to leave, and it was just, an hour gap in between.
Made it tough.
That's pretty tough to watch like that.
On the late models, one of the things that I think is really interesting, and I enjoy being an outsider, and I've become passionate about late model racing. A lot of it's thanks to you, Shane. Yeah. One of the things that I really enjoy, and this ties to both the World of Outlaw late models, because I watched the recaps of this last weekend, and also the MLRA show that we have upcoming on Thursday. One of the things that I think is really cool is just because it's a World of Outlaw show doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have the Lucas Oil regulars showing up. For example, down at Bristol, I know Josh Richards ended up winning. I think it was a Friday night show, and he doesn't even run with the World of Outlaws anymore. Jimmy Owens did, and a lot of the guys that don't even run with the tour. And so that's one of the big differences between late models and sprint cars is typically if you run the World of Outlaw Tour on sprint cars, you don't get to run the All-Star Tour, for example. Or you don't get to jump off the tour and run a couple of special races. That's one of the things I really enjoy about late model racing is, Shane, I think you touched on it, Thursday night here in Davenport, we could have some major league hitters there, even though it's not technically either a World of Outlaw or a Lucas Oil show. Yeah. I think that's
especially
really cool.
Davenport, because everybody loves Davenport. They do a great job.
Yep.
It's great
the
racing.
word's out. The word's out, and all the drivers are out there talking about it, and they want to come to Davenport. So here's what we got. Devin Moran picked up the win, $25,000 for his win. Nice payday for him. Ricky Weiss finished second. Ross Bales third, but Ricky Thornton Jr. got fourth. I mean, he tore that car up pretty major. And, you know, when I seen the pictures of them working on it, I mean, there was just a front stub there with a motor in it. So they did some major damage to that car, and they were able to recover and come home with, you know, a nice run there. 4th place. Brandon Overton was 5th. Chris Madden 6th. Kyle Bronson 7th. Jonathan Davenport, good run for him. Tyler Bruning, 9th place. I mean, Tyler used to run the old Dairy Series here.
Yeah,
And where's he based out of, Jeff?
in northern Iowa.
Okay.
I can't tell you which town. And he's been running that whole series now. And I think that he did yet last year also. But he's really starting to get it because he was fast in Florida, too.
Very fast in Florida.
Oh.
Yep. So was Clanton.
Yes.
And that
So
was
then we had-
nice to see Clanton recover from COVID and come out with a strong Florida
Yeah,
show.
for
No
sure.
kidding. Rick Eckert 10th. Jimmy Owens rolled home 11th. And kind of an off day for Jimmy Owens, but you're going to have those at that level.
And although he led most of the race and looked to be the car to beat on Friday night and broke a left rear wheel. Did you guys
Wow.
see that?
Yeah.
And I
Jeff-
actually froze framed it, and actually 3 of the lugs were still on. So they run a 5-spoke lug for the people that aren't familiar. 3 of them still had the lugs on them. 2 studs were broken off and the wheel was gone. And unfortunately, then Kyle Strickler ran over it and then crashed into the wall and
Yeah.
utterly destroyed a car.
His car, yeah.
Which it was a
Brand
brand
new
new
car.
race car, and he should have been starting in the front, but he was light at the scales after the heat race.
Oh, boy. Wow. So Kyle Strickler 14th last night. Shane Clanton 15th. Nice to see him getting back into racing. Dennis Erb Jr., the one-man band, come home 16th. Frank Ingram 17th. Daryl Lanigan 18th. Bloomquist having an off night. He's had some good runs down there. 19th place, and Ryan King wrapped up the top 20. Boone Briggs was 23rd, a regular on the tour. Josh Richards 24th, and I believe Jared Landers 26th, Kate Diller 27th. So evidently they had some mechanical problems, which my guess would be they didn't finish the race. But great show overall. I'm looking forward to it next year. I'm glad that NASCAR kind of stepped out of this this mold and said, hey, you know what, we're going to try something different. Because the guys that were out there getting it on and getting around the racetrack, those guys were really working for their position. And were there any surprises to you, Jeff, about where they finished and how good they looked out there at Bristol in the Cup?
You know, it kind of surprised me that some of the drivers that have never really ran dirt ran as well as they did.
yeah.
I guess it just, you know, a lot of times we think, oh, it's just a bunch of spoiled little rich kids in Cup that got there that way. But there truly is some talent there. When you can jump, you know, out of your safe zone and get into, in dirt. And then, you know, a week or two before that, like I know Kyle Busch and a couple others were jumping in late models, and they were fast in them, you know. And they're not cars that you can just jump in and be very comfortable in to drive. So
One of the
I
things
thought it was good.
One of the things I thought was interesting too is one of the big opponents of the dirt, Kevin Harvick. I read an article about this coming into the race. He was vehemently opposed to dirt racing. He had never run dirt. He actually ran before the race and loved it, and completely changed his opinion.
Yeah.
Absolutely loves it now.
I read that same article. That was pretty cool.
I thought
Yeah.
so as well.
Hey, what about Ryan Newman? Man, he was getting it on, moving forward all day long. I think he ended up with a 5th place finish.
Yeah, I think so too. But he does have some dirt experience. You know, he
Yeah.
ran some midgets and stuff before.
Sure.
Yep.
Jeff and I, we had taken our wives down to Martinsville, West Virginia, several years ago, and so we're in between the Friday-Saturday show, and we're at a steakhouse, and in walks a guy in a hoodie, and he sits down not too far from us. But it was Ryan Newman, and that guy, I'm going to tell you, he's got some arms. If Kyle Busch wants to fight with somebody, you ought to go over and push him. But
And
no,
I know in that NASCAR show, both Chris Bell and I think 2 of the favorites were Christopher Bell and Kyle Larson, the dirt specialists. And they looked to be the guys that were coming through the field until they took each other out.
they took each other out. My gosh.
It was hard for me to watch, honestly, the NASCAR, because it was just, it's like, you know what I mean? Because you get the late models and stuff out there, like basically, 5 seconds faster
Right.
per lap?
Right.
Sure.
I mean, to me, it made the NASCAR guys not taking anything away because I know it's not their totally different cars, totally different everything. But man, the guys, the dirt guys.
I
mean, looked
they were
good.
the
I
show.
mean, even the 4-cylinder cars were doing 100-mile-an-hour laps, which is crazy.
Yeah,
Crazy.
for sure.
One of the things that I found interesting too was that it opened doors of a lot of guys that don't normally get NASCAR opportunities. The guys like Mike Marlar got a chance. We had a couple of sprint car guys like Chris Windham that got a chance to run a NASCAR that they wouldn't normally get that opportunity, but the door opened because the fact that it was on dirt.
You got anything to add to that, Jeff?
No, I just kind of adding what he said there to the flip side of what you had said. Bloomquist 4 or 5 years ago tried to run when they were running the trucks on dirt on Wednesday night, the prelude or whatever, and he couldn't run with them guys.
Really?
Which surprised me because we all thought, oh man, Scott Bloomquist
Bloomer's in
killed
there.
them
He's
guys,
the man.
But
One
it
of the
didn't
things he
happen.
did, but he changed his truck from a typical, truck setup. I mean, didn't he pull the bar off the front of it, the stabilizer bar? And
Yeah, I don't.
kind of try to work some Bloomer magic. That Old Black Magic didn't have it that day, but that surprised me too, Jeff. I thought he was going to put it on him. But here's what I hope. I hope that because of the Cup running on the dirt, that he brought some new fans into the Cup, and it would introduce some Cup fans to what we love and what we adore, which is dirt track racing. So that's, at the end of the day, I think it was a win-win for the Cup and for the dirt track racers. And, I hope to see more of that in the future.
Yeah, it was definitely good to see NASCAR do something like that because I think in the last few years they've kind of gotten a bad rap and, people have tuned out, for whatever reason. So it's nice to see them doing something a little bit different.
Well, and I think especially since they're trying to manufacture good racing, and that's one of the things that as dirt track enthusiasts, we can like and watch NASCAR, and I watch NASCAR as much as the next guy. However, when you see them trying to manufacture racing, close, accurate, fun racing where guys are exchanging the lead nonstop like they did 2 weeks ago at Farmer City in the Outlaw show, the Outlaw Late Model show, or like they did the World of Outlaw Sprint Cars did twice in 2 different races this last weekend in Indiana, and when you see racing fans that tune in on Sunday and watch a marathon, that there's not a lot of competitive racing, and NASCAR trying to mimic that, and they turn their backs a little bit on the dirt track racing. It's nice to see NASCAR pay more attention to that outwardly and hopefully bring more fans, like you said, Shane, into dirt track racing and enjoy what we enjoy and take part in that.
And then to add to that, Kelly, what you're doing right now, you brought a whole new group of people into racing last year. I know I had a couple of grandmothers that called me up, and health-wise are not able to make it to the racetrack. They're able to watch their grandsons race on TV. But we had people from, 24 states, Canada, Mexico, and 3 countries. And believe me, the guy sitting over there in Germany watching wasn't going to be. We're not going to miss out on his ticket in the grandstands.
Right, and that's the thing. And I think it helped the promoters last year because the first year we started doing the Facebook stuff. I mean, that was one of the first things we started doing in Macoka. It's like, oh, people are staying home. Everybody's like, you're killing the. Nobody's coming because they're staying home watching on Facebook. And I'm like, I know, but give it a minute, right? Because there's going to be people that are going to check it out, but the main idea is to get it out to that many more people that hopefully somebody else gets their eye on it and they want to go on a Thursday night or a Friday night or a Saturday night, whatever night it is. And I think that a lot of the tracks have made that change. Or not, a lot of the promoters are like, yeah, because it does, man. It totally opens up. There's only so many people you can get in the stands.
Right.
And there's so many people, especially with COVID, and people understood that sometimes, you just, and like, I love watching Maya and I love watching them guys, but I can't go to Missouri and all these different places where they're going to be racing at. And I mean, who can, right? And especially around here, I mean, even to go from Davenport to Dubuque to Lee County to 34 to 300, that's a lot of moving around.
A lot of traveling.
Right?
That's right.
So why not give people the opportunity to tune in without having, because they're still going to go to the true fans are still going to go to the track because there's no replacement for that.
And now that we're coming out of COVID, and I think this is going to become more and more evident in 2021, the World of Outlaw Sprint Cars ran Friday night in Kokomo, Indiana, and Saturday south. It's 4 hours south of there in Hobstadt, Indiana. Both places were sold out, absolutely packed. I believe it was Hobstadt. They ran a 40-lap feature, had 20 lead changes. Okay, this is one of the things that the World of Outlaws have done very well. Is as soon as their feature is over, within a half an hour, 45 minutes, they have a produced recap of the show out on their YouTube channel.
Wow.
And obviously, it's not detracting from their attendance because they're absolutely standing room only. And so I think
that's
it's going to bring more.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, even here,
Right.
everywhere they go, they bring the crowd,
That's
and
right.
people look for it. They see
right.
that the Outlaws are coming, and people want to go see
And
it.
they jumped on that bandwagon a few years ago. So hopefully we'll see more and more of the local smaller operations take advantage of the technology and expose themselves and other to new fans and bring more fans into the stands.
Yeah, I think what people are seeing now is, they watch it on TV. Maybe they're not a regular. They haven't been to the races in 10 years. And there's nothing like the live experience. Once you get them there to the racetrack,
Yeah.
I mean, electricity fills the air, along with smells like hot dogs.
Right.
And of course, I'm always hungry, so that works for me. But no, the feeling of electricity, the excitement of the drivers, you end up, you get to know the different nuances and the driving styles that are out there. You become a fan of a particular driver, and you want to go back. And really, when you look at the cost of racing, going up in the grandstands, and what you got to pay today, it really is a low cost sport that you
Yeah.
take the whole family to.
And everybody's going
because
to have a good time.
a lot of tracks are 12 and under free, so you can take the kids. You don't have to worry about that. I know over at Davenport Speedway, we don't charge to park. If you go to a lot of your sports, even the semi-professional sports, you're paying a fee to park down, in front of the grandstands,
Right.
and
right.
so pretty low cost for them. So Kelly,
I just wanted to say that we've put out, and I get this is our first show, but I did put out earlier that we were going to open the phone lines up at 8:00. If anybody wants to call in, anybody has any questions or anything like that, now would be the time to do that. And if nobody wants to call in or anything, that's fine too. We got hopefully we're doing a lot of these, and we'll give everybody the opportunity to say their piece or whatever.
Do you have the number for
what
them
number
to
you
call
want
in?
to call
It's
in?
563-528-1980, and you can call right into the studio. So 563-528-1980.
And our plans are to do this every Monday night. We're going to do it 7 to 8 o'clock, and we talked about the time. And Kelly, Pat, we decided that people are on the way home at 5 o'clock, so we didn't want to do it at 5 o'clock. We wanted to let them sit down, eat dinner with their family, and have time to kind of gather their thoughts, and we'd kick it off at 7 o'clock. So we're going to be here each and every Monday giving local race results. Mark it on your calendar. We'd love to have you as a regular here. You can go to Done Right TV on Facebook.
Done Right TV, Facebook, and YouTube, and we'll probably, start another Facebook or start something. I don't want to get too crazy because the season's about to start, and I'm going to be going crazy trying to get all these shows in and stuff too. But
Sure.
I want to also continue going on the road and going to different shops and stuff like that because I think people like that. And guys, everybody watching and listening or whatever, I think you guys all agree we're here for the sport. We're here for the fans, and if there's something that you want us to do or us to, something that we
Let
want
us
to
know.
include in the show or whatever. If you hate something about the show, I mean, let us know. I'm all about feedback. It's and I'm always ready to push it. I'm always wanting to push it to another level. So, so don't. And I'm not saying that there's not going to be mistakes along the way. That's one of the reasons why I called it True Grit, or why I thought of True Grit, is just because it's not all fun and games, man. It's not all, people see the guys winning all the time, but they're winning because of the grit and because of what they've went through in their everyday battles, and things like that. Like you said earlier, that $7 part broke. That kind of took you out of the game, but you came right back, right? And so that's kind of what I want. I'm looking for more stories and for more, that's what I'm looking for.
And Jeff, thanks for coming on the show tonight. I mean,
Thanks
good
for
luck in 2021. I mean, I hope you guys, that Harris car looks real fast. You get over this little hump. We got some real tough competition over Davenport. But I think Mitchell Morris is, a special driver. You got a nice car. And, the good news is that, Jeff, you've always been real smart with setups and being able to tune the car up to the driver. So good luck in 21.
I appreciate it. We haven't really raced a lot the last few years. We plan on racing at least double of what we have in the past. We plan on going 35, 40 nights this year anyways. We have good equipment. We're anxious to get racing.
Good. We are too. All right, with that being said, Pat, any closing thoughts?
I'm looking forward to doing this, and I think I want to reiterate one more thing with that Kelly just touched on. One of the things that I think we're trying to do here, especially for the people that are watching that may be a passive fan or not a huge race fan, we have an incredible amount of knowledge here, and we know and have access to a lot of racers. So if we can maybe develop segments to bring some of the behind-the-scenes stuff that happens that we have access to, being in the pit area, but also being able to bring that to race fans from a kind of pull back the curtain perspective, I would love to do that. And so if anybody has any questions, feel free to message us on Kelly's Done Right TV page.
Yep, and to take that even a little bit further, Pat, I'm looking for people at the track, fans at the track, to help us out. We're going to be at Lee County. Hopefully everything is going to work out between all the tracks. We got Dubuque, Lee County, 34 Raceway, Davenport, East Moline. What am I missing? Something, I'm sure. But it's going to be hard for me to go to every track and to be able to do the pit. I'd love to have some kids or some teenagers that can help put GoPros in the car. I'll provide the GoPros, then I could have to get that footage done so I don't have to run around and try to do that. It'd be great to have somebody that can do interviews and stuff in the pits. That could move into camera operators, production, stuff like that. So we're looking for people, and it's always I've found it the 1 year that I've really been doing this, it's a whole lot easier to get people involved that already have a love for the sport. So we'll pay your pit passes or something like that if you want to help out with just even taking pictures in the pits while we're streaming the show could make something, because we're going to start putting out after the weekend, like Monday, Tuesday, we're going to put out highlights from every place that we're at too. So, and we didn't do that last year. So,
Great.
So anything that we can add to that, if there's anybody that wants to, we can set up a Dropbox, whatever, however we figure out how to do that. But I'm going to be looking for people to help out, and maybe, it could be maybe an apprenticeship type thing, where the kids can learn how to, be a producer or be some of these shows pay pretty well,
Yeah,
so.
right. Yeah.
And anything that they produce on their own, they can be the executive producer of. So,
good.
So just keep that in mind. If anybody's interested, you can hit me on the Facebook page. Again, I'm here to grow the sport. I'm here, these guys have the experience. I don't. So if you don't have something, find somebody that does. What I have is the passion and the persistence to just keep going. I don't care how many times I get beat down. It's an experience.
I think he's got the true grit, Shane.
That's right.
Did I tie it up and put a nice little bow on it for you?
Yes, sir.
Nice.
Yes,
There you
sir.
go.
Nice.
So,
All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thanks for tuning in. That'll wrap things up for this week's show. We'll get that phone number posted out there, so next week you'll be ready to dial that phone, call in, ask our guest or one of us any questions you may have. And with that being said, enjoy your week. We'll see you at the racetrack, and I'll be seeing you around the track.